can have a little additional committee of the whole discussion after we bang off the regular council meeting. And we can listen to what Mr. Smith has to say, which will be good, obviously. So call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda for tonight, please. So moved. Okay. Mr. Stewart. Okay. All those in favor? Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 26th. Do we have a motion to adopt as presented? Okay. Councilor Michael, Councilor Stewart, so hand up. All those in favor? Thank you. Now, special notation, Ms. Azawa from the Hope Crime Prevention Society and Constable Jackie Rempel will be attending the next council meeting in all likelihood. They had a bit of a computer crisis at Hope Crime Prevention, and their fancy PowerPoint presentation is in cyber no man's land, so they're going to have to redo it and join us next week, not next week, 2 weeks from now potentially, so make sure we have them on the agenda next time. Now, item 5A, staff reports, letter of support for Segway Tours. Mr. Korlowski.
Yes, Your Worship, and I attached a short report to that. Again, back on 13 October, Mr. Chuck Scott from Wild Tours International came by and presented a delegation to council, at which time staff was directed to conduct research and draft a letter of support for the effort. So a letter of support is attached. I must just remind council that we're not to promote a single business per se, so the nature of the letter promotes the industry and ideally then the potential of wildlife tours to conduct business in town. It's there for your perusal, and if you want to make changes to it, now would be a good time to let me know. One thing I should make you aware of is it does mention the fact that the Chamber of Commerce is aware of the situation and does support this effort. However, they would like their name or the chamber to be removed from the letter.
They were the one that promoted it. I don't understand.
Personally, it's a statement of fact, so you may choose not to do so. I sent you the, I copied you all in the email.
Well, I don't have a problem taking their name out. I mean, they're the ones that brought it to our attention. And
I decided to remind you because I was asked to.
Yeah, well, that's fine. If they don't want to be attached to it, that's okay.
So you have the letter, Your Worship, the draft, sorry, councillors, so.
Okay, do we have a motion to send it on?
With the removal of Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah. Okay, Councilor Medlock, Councilor Stewart. Discussion?
Yeah, I have a discussion. I guess I'm inclined to leave the chamber in there. I guess I'm just feeling like, are we drawing a line in the sand? So in my opinion, Advantage Hope, the chamber, the district were all in support of this. If the Advantage Hope and the chamber want to send off their own letter, they're certainly willing to, but this shows an alignment of wanting to move this forward. So unless, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like we're sort of in this position and you know, each entity is digging in their heels, and I think that, you know, we have to take a leadership role, and it was the chamber who did bring this to our attention and want this to move forward, and we are supporting, you know, the industry in coming to Hope as an industry.
Your Worship, as you may recall, I had circulated this draft to the Chamber and Advantage Hope in the hopes that we could send our letters together as one package for maximum impact. The Chamber then came back and said they would like to take part in that, and they wanted their name removed from our draft letter. So right now as it stands, the statement of fact in the letter of the Chamber of Commerce, I believe, is not offensive. But right now only Advantage Hope and the district will be sending their letters off concurrently as one package.
I'm okay if they want to be out of there, off our letter. I assume they're going to write their own letter. I don't understand it either, but that's okay.
Sorry, excuse me. Hi, everyone.
I also find it a bit strange, but I guess if that's their wish, I don't want to create a battle.
Well, I think in this letter, it doesn't, the first part doesn't even commit the chamber to supporting it. They've just been made aware of it, so it's not giving their blanket endorsement of the, so. Unless I missed a part in the,
I'm okay with that either way.
I'm personally in favor of sending it as is.
Yeah.
Okay, Counselor Stewart?
My position is that they've asked to have their name removed and that it's important that we honor some requests that come from people. It's a very small request. I don't think it's a big initiative to remove the chamber's name.
We got a tiebreaker here now.
Okay.
That's good. Well, I guess, you know, I think what we should do is follow up with a little paper trail here, because I don't know what's going on at the chamber, quite frankly. I didn't go to that meeting, so I think it's important we just say, as per your request, you have not been included in the letter of support for the Segway Tours. You know, a letter from us to the chamber, so later on, no one can say that, why did the chamber get taken out? You know, so, you know what I'm saying, we'll take it out, if, you know, we can do that. But I think we have to respond to the chamber and say, as per your request, you've been removed from the letter of support.
That can be done, Your Worship.
Yeah, because I don't know if it was a board thing or one person thing. Councilor Stewart?
I'm just curious, the email that you showed us with the draft letter attached, would that be sufficient? Because it does say that the chamber would like their name removed from that letter. Is that not sufficient?
That came after this was prepared for council. That's why I'm
This is a
making,
different draft?
No, this is the same draft.
roughly the same draft. So I'm just making you aware of that, and if you decide, council, as a council, to remove any reference to the Chamber of Commerce, I will take your direction and remove any reference to the Chamber of Commerce, and I can, as per your worship, I can follow the paper trail and let them know that council has expunged the Chamber of Commerce from the letter.
Okay. Okay, I'll send a letter minus Chamber of Commerce. Is everyone okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay?
I'm good.
I'm in favor.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have,
As amended.
yeah, so we have all of council in favor with the exception of Councilor Dowell. Would you like your negative vote recorded on that, or?
Yes.
Okay. So, I had a nice visit with Mr. Fordowski and Ms. Bellingham last week, rather, on the asset management initiative. So if I could get Mr. Fordowski to talk to us about this and speak to the recommended plan of attack.
Yes, Your Worship, councillors. There's a fairly lengthy report here. It's 6 pages, and then we can talk to some of the detail. So you'll recall that as part of the strategic plan, one of the priorities was the 3-year priority infrastructure spending plan. And underpinning that plan has to be an asset management plan, which is also one of the tasks on the strategic plan chart. So we needed to develop a way ahead to achieve a plan in a timely fashion that would meet the needs of the district. And recent councils have identified the need for this improved infrastructure management, and certainly from 2012 on, this has been the case. And I'll just highlight some of the parts of the report, certainly for the public that are in attendance. The province and the Union of British Columbia municipalities are moving forward to promote effective and eventually mandated asset management programs. And as of 2014, the presence of a functioning asset management plan or having an asset management plan already in development became a key criteria upon which infrastructure grant proposals were ranked, judged, and ultimately approved or denied. And this fact was reflected in a recent denial of the district's grant application under the Canada Builds Fund for an extension of the Floodhope Sewer Project this year. Now that was a back brief, an oral back brief provided to me as initiated by your visit to UBCM and discussions with the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure at the time. So adopting a long-term asset management, or adopting long-term asset management as the way of doing business helps organizations achieve the following things, right? It's good corporate governance. It's sound long-term financial management, and for us that's key. Sustainable, equitable, and affordable service delivery. Who gets sewer, who gets water, who gets functioning this, who gets that. Effective risk management, and effective management of asset function, capacity, and preservation. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but keys to achieving a sustainable asset management capability and plan are answering the following questions. So we have to establish an inventory. An inventory, what do we have and where is it? Currently, the district does not have an optimized inventory. Cost and replacement rates. What is it worth per linear foot of road, per linear foot of sewer, etc.? We don't have those to hand. Condition and capability analysis. What is its condition and expected remaining service life? The district, in its records, has never done this, but it's being required and it will be mandated. Capital and operating plans. What is the level of service expectation? What needs to be done? Ultimately, that means, obviously, how much are you going to spend and what priorities are you going to weigh off and decide against the others? And also with capital and operating plans, when do you need to do it? So, do you put away now for later, or do you prioritize with what resources you have year by year? Short and long-term financial plan, again, how much will it cost and what's the acceptable level of risk? In an ideal world, you'll have in an asset management plan all your infrastructure, how much the replacement cost is, the condition, and the service life of it, how old it is. And you would just rate them basically and go, we need to replace this then, this then, this then. The issue obviously is money isn't in an endless bucket. Council has a difficult decision knowing that we have to replace certain things at certain times. We don't have the resources, but obviously you have to take the priority choice, and these are sometimes difficult. So, also at the end of it, essentially how do we achieve and ensure long-term affordability? So looking at a longer-term asset management plan, making some priority decisions, council ideally will have and come up with an asset management policy, which can move forward year by year, amended, adopted, but other councils will come aboard and then look at this long-term sustainability and amend the policy as required. But ideally, a policy is in place to achieve that. Like many medium and smaller municipalities in BC, the district currently maintains a list of tangible capital assets. So we know roughly what we have and we value them, and then we amortize them over time. And we conduct annual and multi-year risk analyses of certain parts of the infrastructure, like for example sewers, and if these risks are judged high for failure and impact, then they are appropriately put forward to council for approval in the 5-year plans. Currently, this process does not promote optimal asset management, investment, or prioritization. Sustainability is not as rigorous as it could be, and a consistent process should be mandated. Therefore, the district needs to develop and continually maintain an asset management investment plan, and that's what council has asked me to look into. In the 2015 financial year, Plan Council recognized this fact, gave us a budget of $10,000. We then were able to match it with a UBCM grant. So we currently have $20,000 in the pot to move towards an asset management way ahead, and perhaps even a plan, as discussed in this document here. Interestingly enough, from a current affairs point of view, we saw the recent election of the Federal Liberal Party as the Government of Canada. One of their platform planks is to augment infrastructure spending. So they're looking at an increase of $9.5 billion in 2016-17, with annual investments nearly doubling from $65 billion across Canada to $125 billion over the next 10 years. So it is possible, certainly more likely, that we can take advantage of this as a community if we're prepared as far as grant applications goes. What that means is we have to have an asset management plan in place to be competitive with other communities to leverage this money. And in fact, it's our money because we all pay federal and provincial tax. So there are mainly 3 avenues of approach to setting up inventories and creating asset management plans while adhering to, in this case, it's NAM's principles. And for those of you that don't know, I'll just tell you what NAM stands for. It is the New Zealand Asset Management Support System, or the organization. So they took the lead on all of this back about 15 years ago. So the first system involves having staff undergo the NAMS training itself. to set up the annual, or the municipal inventory and develop the asset management plan using official NAMS, the official licensed NAMS system. So they are in BC, and you go to workshops, and you use their software. It's a version of Excel, I guess, and update the costs. It's a series of workshops. For example, an initial workshop would be roughly $1,650 per person plus tax. And it would require at least 3 district personnel, in our opinion, to attend. It would cost therefore about $9,000. That's the initial one. And it would be a series, and we can't determine exactly how many, but certainly for every aspect, there would be more training. The staff involved would have to be finance, public works, and administration. There's a subscription fee every year of $2,500, or sorry, an initial subscription fee of $2,500, and thereafter an annual fee of $600 per year. So this system is designed primarily for municipality with larger numbers of staff who can be experts and who have the flexible time to actually undertake the training and come up with the inventories, ideally get the inventories into a GIS system, which is a geographical interface system like online mapping, and then come up with all the inventories, replacement costs, and all the information you need, then do the risk assessment and come up with a basic asset management plan. Do we have a staff like that? We don't. The second way of achieving this is to conduct a primarily software-based asset management process where, like a lot of things these days, here's a new program, it'll be great, it'll work, it's super. I've had many experiences of this in the federal government, but my report does mention one of the, not premier ones, but one of the more popular ones, which is Asset Finder. So what you normally do is you get the consultant, in this case, to migrate a lot of data into a new software platform, which doesn't necessarily allow for transfer between NAM software or your own. You sometimes have to buy equipment. In this case, you're looking at iPads. And so you would initially lay out, for example, $28,000, $30,000, buy iPads, and you would have an annual software license fee, which could be up to, in this case, about $10,000. This is a system that would get you the inventory and the GIS, potentially, and a basic asset management plan. Obviously, there'd be more risk assessment, and a priority plan would have to be fleshed out by staff and council. This system is really effective in bigger communities and those that are growing rapidly because they're more comprehensive. And they don't just do asset management as far as a focused effort, but really they do things like bylaw enforcement, business licenses, and it's really a whole system of systems. And many of them are going that way. Too comprehensive, in my opinion, for the district at this time. And certainly, you know, the added technology needed, the added staff training that's needed, skill fade that could occur because it's a technology-based solution, I don't think are ideal for a municipality of size. The third one is to engage a consultant to create the GIS inventory, the asset inventory, and the initial asset management plan. No extra software, ideally it's Excel-based, and we already have access to a GIS system through the FBRD, so we can use that system and we can have input and inform that system to keep it amending itself as required. This way of doing it allows for the quickest development and implementation of getting an asset inventory, getting it up on GIS, and ultimately getting the asset management plan in place. In this case, the proposal that I have been discussing about also talks about a 20-year asset management investment plan, developing that as opposed to just a basic asset management plan, coming to council with reports, doing the training with staff as one would work through to develop the asset management plan. It's based on Excel. Staff can manipulate it. Staff training required is minimal. I believe that is the best way to approach achieving an asset management plan for this district in the quickest time, with the best value. It's not the cheapest, but again, it's going to achieve what the district needs in the short term. I also included a table here for you, which talks about some of the key deliverables and key factors in judging the three systems. And the non-software-based consultant-created asset management plan did come out first in the table, as you can all read there. The relative costs, again, there's an initial cost with the consultant, which is higher, but the ongoing cost will be lower moving forward, because you don't have to license software, you don't have to belong to a program. Staff can update these things more and more. There will be some staff ongoing training and some adjustments needed as you go through with any plan, but a small amount can be put away in budgets. So what we're talking about here is, certainly for the computer-based program, we're looking at roughly $30,000 for the initial setup and at least $10,000 annually, and that's without any other training or anything like that. And that's without developing an investment plan, certainly. And then you have the Urban Systems consultancy-based plan, which is $62,000 plus GST, but it basically does everything, and you will have a functioning asset management investment plan for 20 years, which would best aid in making sustainable decisions moving forward, and certainly lead to being able to come up with a policy sooner than if it was just a big asset management database. I'm coming to you with this because it doesn't meet the $20,000 that I already have in the budget, but then again, I realize the aim that council has is to get an in-place asset management system going. And what I can tell you is that there's $197,300 remaining in the unallocated capital fund, which I believe would be a good use of this money because it relates clearly to capital. Or we can use the $20,000 in 2015 and we can cover the rest in next year's budget. We will, of course, apply for more asset grants, but there's no guarantee. And those asset grants will go to offset any monies that would be put to this project.
I think a number of council members probably want to speak to this. The one thing I'd like to say is, thank you for your work on this, Mr. Vorlowski. I have every confidence in our staff, but I certainly agree with the points of bringing staff to training, getting them phoned up on the intricacies of this. It's going to be a little tough given our small number of staff. So bringing in a consultant, I think, is certainly the right plan. The other thing is, as you correctly pointed out, the federal Liberals, I think their point about infrastructure investment was very well received by the public. And I think what we did last time, when there was an infrastructure grant that was announced just a few months back, we did not have the background technical tools to properly support our grant application. And I think that certainly did not bode well when they came to the nuts and bolts assessment of our grant application. So I would like to see this thing up and running sooner than later, because it would be nice to be available for the next intake of infrastructure grants. And I'm assuming that the new federal government will want to maintain some level of momentum, so they'll probably have their ducks in a row sooner than later. And so that's council discussion. Councillor Medlock, Councillor Crop.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of information you just threw at us there, but I think we had a chance to read it ahead of time. So I think that, like your recommendation there, I'd like to move your recommendation to go with Urban Systems, and the reason why is any of these things are going to help with the geographic information system. And I know that we've been hearing from previous director of community development, Scott Mazuni, as well as Public Works, how much help that would be on a day-to-day basis, not just in long-term planning for infrastructure replacement, but day-to-day. So I think it's not just, it's a good investment in that regard as well. The second one, obviously, the cost is prohibitive with the $30,000 up front, $10,000 a year. You'd be, after 3 years, you're spending the $62,000 that you're looking to spend now. And you actually answered my third question, which was what was left in the unallocated capital expense fund. So I think that this is a good thing to do. We've already taxed those dollars. I don't want to see another tax increase for another $40,000, another 1% tax increase next year. We'll spend the dollars we've already collected, which was the initial plan of having that capital expense fund. I think it's just following along the way we should be here. So I'm glad that this report came forward and we can start going on it for 2016. The one question we do have is, you need to know that you want to apply for more grants in the future. If if we've already started down the process, are we even eligible for grants? Because usually they're not eligible if you are in the middle of a process, therefore getting things going.
Your worship, we'll have to see what the criteria is exactly. Some of them do allow that, but the majority don't. I believe this is quite important to UBC and the province, so we may have some leeway there.
Well, I think this
We
is,
can only try.
this is a document that's going to, when it's done, will identify realistic priorities as opposed to, you know, council, administrator, director of public works saying, well, I kind of think that this is a priority. There's going to be solid technical data to back up which chunk of infrastructure has limited lifespan, correct?
You're right insofar as it will be formalized, and you will have better comprehensive data in which to choose priorities as a community moving forward. However, I would say that when staff say this is a priority every year in capital and no shift, it's because conditions on the ground shift. So for example, sewer has collapsed, it's now priority 1. It should have been part of an asset management plan in place, but it wasn't. Now we can get it on. So we always judge projects going forward, capital projects, based on high impact and high possibility, because we know we can't afford to replace everything. But this will clearly aid in many ways.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crowe?
Thank you. Councillor Medlock asked one of my questions about the grant funding, but anyhow. I have a few comments, and of course I basically support this, but I'd like to hear a bit more. For the GIS mapping with the Fraser Valley Regional District, do we pay $25,000 or thereabouts a year for that? That kind of rings a bell for me.
Your worship, through you, approximately, yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's definitely something we can utilize. The other things are, as everyone knows, basically, I'm a huge supporter of having shelf-ready plans, which we have to have, but where I'm running into a little bit of a muddy water here is when I read this report earlier, I was thinking that it almost sounds like a PSAP report in terms of what we've already done. So is any of this duplication? Because we had to do an asset management report some time ago and it cost us a lot of money over the last 4 years. So
TCA report?
no, PSAP report. So for our infrastructure, so what's different?
I would have to look, your worship, at the PSAP report that was submitted. However, I can tell you that they're not similar, they're not used, well, they may be similar, but they're not used in the same way for the same thing. And PSAP reports don't qualify as asset management reports as recognized by the provincial government or the grant funders.
But it was mandated by the province, was it not?
I would have to do some research, your worship, to answer the particular PSAP question. But again,
so I want to spend the money in the right spot. If we're spending the money, I don't want to duplicate that information. And we should know that already before we can order a consultant in. So that's something that's quite important, actually.
yes. Your worship, what I can tell you is we don't have an asset management inventory in place. We don't have replacement costs calculated. And we certainly don't have them reflected on the GIS. I can get information on the PSAP document that was submitted earlier. But if I thought there was duplication or an economy of scale to be gotten through the PSAP, I would have presented a report to say this is a way we could save money. I pay taxes here too.
Thank you, through you. A couple of questions. So is this a manual input system then, once you have the Excel spreadsheet set up? And who would maintain that manual input process?
Yes, your worship, it is a manual input system which is actually flexible enough for us because it's Excel based. So once the initial plan is done and the inventory is planned, Public Works ideally would, and Finance and perhaps Community Development would have input into this. Every year or every couple of years you want to adjust the plan. So you go in and you automatically have everything go up by a year, for example. There would be an inflation potentially formula built into the replacement costs, or if there are significant costs in particular areas or parts, for example, sewer pipe, then operations would go in and update. Now, things like that, obviously, we would be conducting consultations through the staff, through other municipalities, through the NAMS, the provincial NAMS group, the UBCM, etc. But the system is flexible enough that the staff can do that.
Okay, so a couple follow-up questions. So this would then be appropriately approved by the provincial government as an asset management system? And then eventually, is it portable to a software system if we decide that we want to go to a software system? How is that then able to migrate into an actual software system so we're not reduplicating?
Yes. Your worship, it is approved. It operates on the NAMS principles. So we will be good from that stead. And it is a benefit, as Councillor Dybel has stated, Dybel has stated, because it's Excel-based, which is a very generic program, almost all other specialty programs will migrate or port that data in, as opposed to having a special parochial program now that may not be able to export because of license or technical issues later.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart?
So I just have a quick comment. So in July, the AGLD sent out the asset management plan, and I read through it in July, and I was kind of excited, going, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? And so when this came up for tonight, I was very excited that this plan is coming into place. I haven't felt over the last 11 months that we do have a plan in place for this district. I don't feel we have you know, set ready or shelf ready plans, and so when grants come forward, I haven't felt the confidence to go forward with that. This is exciting to me. The only thing that I would like you just to confirm for the public, I know that you answered my email earlier, was how we chose the consultant. And also that I really do support this. There is a cautionary tale in the AGLG's report that says to be careful when you outsource, because a lot of our valuable information is within our staff. And so I like outsourcing the initial, but I'd like to see our staff get the proper professional development to keep the plan going and to keep it alive. So that's just my comments, and I totally think this is awesome.
I'll speak to the last point of your comments then, Councillor, in that the proposal envisions coming up with the inventory, the plan, with staff together. Because there are documents and mapping here in the district, but obviously they need the staff expertise to input into the plan. That's in the proposal.
That's awesome.
Okay, sounds good. So I guess the question would be, do we have a staff recommendation? I don't think we had a seconder, so let's do that. Okay, Councillor Dybel, second. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Sounds good. Committee reports. Now we have a whole coming up here, finish that off at the end of council. So for the purpose I keep the mayor's report really short today. I will say, however, that I did attend on behalf of the district the celebration of life for Len Clausen. And he served 45 years with the local fire department, and certainly they had an open mic component there. And I shared a few personal thoughts as to the amazing man that he was when I knew him as the emergency preparedness coordinator way back when, about I guess 19 years ago. And he had already been retired from the fire department, I believe, when I met him initially. But 45 years before that that's a huge commitment. So we had a number of fire personnel that were there in their own time, which was good. And they had a garage party at his place. I guess he was notorious for having garage parties. He has a large 2.5 bay garage in the back, big ceiling, and so I guess a party of two happened there, and the final one was on this Saturday. So it's good to attend on behalf of the district. Councillor Diamond?
The only thing to report is I just attended for information purposes to the 753 public hearing, which I think that the committee that was set forth did an excellent job of representing the ratepayers in 753, and look forward to hearing what the outcome of the comptroller is by the end of November. So good work for them, and yeah, great turnout as well at the 753.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Stewart?
So I also attended the 753 just as an observer, just to gather up some thoughts about what was going on in the community and to be of support. And I also attended the ratepayers meeting on the first Thursday of this month, as Councillor Exon is out of town. So they talked about other ways that they can be proactive in the community, and the videotaping of the council meetings is part of their way of contributing to the people who can't be here to attend the meetings. So that was kind of nice that they were looking for forward-moving ways to be active in the community, so that's great. And I had a question about the contract for Advantage Hope and whether or not it would be a grandfather renewal or if it would go to tender. So feel free, if you like, to email me later with the answer to that, because I don't know it. And that's pretty much it.
Your worship, we can answer part of that question now, which is the tourism issue. As far as Advantage Hope undertaking a tourism function, that does periodically come up for RFP or RFQ. And until such time as the district decides it wants to change its economic development model, we will have to maintain funding Advantage Hope as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Medlock?
I have nothing to report.
That's a first. Councillor Crowell?
Not so much to report, but I did want to comment that I'm really amazed at how many people came forward after our council meeting and chatted with me about how many rats there are around the community and how many they've seen and how it's affecting their homes and their yards and their gardens and their livelihoods. And you know, there was some positive comments about the steps forward with the new amendments to the bylaw for the garbage. That was well taken. But, you know, there is definitely some concern out there, and we certainly need to continue to monitor this and look at it. It's not gone away, and we haven't done anything initially about it, and I think we need to actually pursue that a little bit more, so that's my comments. And as far as Mr. Clausen goes, he was one of the first people I met in Hope, so over 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and he was on search and rescue, and he desperately wanted me to get on there and be part of that PEP coordinator stuff and learn how to do all that. But anyhow, he was a very nice person, and he was a fun individual, and really enjoyed him. And even up at the Fraser Lodge, where he went to daycare there, he was always grinning from ear to ear, and he'll be sadly missed. He was a nice individual. That's it.
Absolutely. Now tying into, I guess, Councillor Devlin and Councillor Stewart's comments regarding a 753 system, worthy to note that that public meeting was the first one in 10 years that they actually put on, which is actually pretty good. So there's obviously been a lot of feedback from Hope that they thought they should hear in person. I did say a few words on behalf of the district, and that was that we would look at future acquisition if there is up-to-date engineered information that is credible on the table. The Comptroller's office, in the meeting I had with them ahead of time, indicated that the reserve monies from the 753 system could be utilized to commission such a study. The paperwork for that system is an absolute disaster based on the lack of information that Mr. Murphy provided. I don't think he provided anything actually at the public meeting. It was quite actually embarrassing for him. So the other thing is, of course, the bone of contention there, the big one was the large lump sum, the $192 to $196 a month for 3 months. It was an undue hardship on a lot of people that they were arguing, which I would agree with. I asked the Comptroller's office if they could insist that lump sum be sort of amortized over a 1 or 2 year period to ease the burden on the residents if indeed the lump sum payment is okayed, and they said that Mr. Murphy was not amenable to that. So, but they know that people are very concerned. The 753 committee was very articulate, I thought, as well. I share that thought. And then as well, I posed the question of, since previous fees, water fees, have not been properly collected by the 753 private utility, what happens if half the people in the 753 utility decide that the lump sum payment is not something they're going to pay? half might pay, half won't pay, potentially, then what happens? So 7.3 would have half the money they need, project does move ahead. Hopefully the Controller's Office will address that issue, because that is something they will definitely have to deal with. Yes?
If I may, sorry to interrupt. After the last meeting as well, I was informed that the sad state of mapping that didn't exist with 753. So maybe it's worth telling those that are assembled, we have scanned any mapping we have of 753 water system, and we have digitized it, and Mr. Moser should be picking it up tomorrow. So 753 should be able to respond to certain mapping questions using the information we gave him. However, we can't speak for a private utility, nor can we vouch for the accuracy of the drawings. However, I thought it was important we try to assist as much as possible.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you so much. And I guess the next item here we have to deal with is item 8A, permits and bylaws. Development permit and development variance permit, 21534 Richmond Drive, relaxation of the front yard setback for Mr. Keith Dalton, or Mr. Dalton. And since I have a bit of a cold and I will probably lose my voice, maybe I will get Mr. Gill, who worked very hard on this file anyways, to read out the proposed motion and we can get on the table and then we can have some discussion on it.
Sure.
Okay.
This is
Ms.
Chief
Bellingham?
Wilson. For the geotechnical hazard development permit for the property located at 21534 Richmond Drive, be prepared to enable the owner to proceed with the construction of a single-family dwelling and approved accessory structures. And further, that upon receipt of a satisfactory certified report from a professional engineering confirming site-specific safe building site for the property on Richmond Drive, authorize the Director of Community Development to endorse the geotechnical hazards development permit and the required covenant document. And further, that staff be authorized to prepare a development variance permit to relax the front yard setback requirement of 7.5 meters down to 2.0 meters, and that the siting exceptions as provided in zoning bylaw number 1324 be reduced to 1.2 meters to allow for roof overhangs and a proposed deck on the property at Richmond Drive to enable the property owner to construct a single-family dwelling. And further, that in accordance with the District of Hope Development Procedures Bylaw, the Local Government Act, and the Community Charter, authorize staff to issue notice of intent to consider the approval of a development variance permit to the neighboring properties.
Okay, do we have a motion to open the discussion on that?
So moved.
Councillor Croft, Councillor Stewart, thank you. Okay, Mr. Gill, if you can introduce this to us.
Your Worship, Honorable Council, the property itself is a very challenging property. It's got geophysical constraints to the rear of the property, which is the slope of, I guess, Thacker Mountain. And so the applicant has gone to a geotech engineer, and the geotech has confirmed that the safe building envelope is to the front of the property. And therefore, to sort of enable that, we need to do a variance adjustment to the front yard setback. And so the other items that you should keep into consideration is that the neighboring property also went through a similar variance process due to the same sort of geophysical constraints. I'm not saying that's going to be the precedent, but it merits consideration. And the other end of it is this property may be a little bit more challenging than that neighboring one. So keep that in mind.
And I guess from the way I read your report, if this variance is not granted, it could essentially sterilize the property.
Correct.
Okay, Councillor Bell?
Thank you, through you. So just a couple of questions. So the setback for the other house, is that similar to this nature? So it, in essence, is really 6 feet from the curb? Because basically it's 7.5 meters, which is 25 feet. So now we're requesting it to actually be 6 feet from the curb?
Worship,
Yeah.
through you.
I'm here. I'm just getting domestic.
For the neighboring property, it was also a 2-meter setback.
Yeah.
The one thing that they kept in mind is that there is a boulevard,
Mm-hmm.
unpaved,
Mm-hmm.
so it sort of gives the sense that there is a front yard.
Okay.
And that boulevard at this point is 7.5 meters from the edge of asphalt.
Okay, so it has the appearance that it has a bigger front and yard than what it really does have, because the district owns that
That is
7.5, okay. Now, I noticed that we have an engineer's report from 2010. Is that the engineer's report that we're going on right now? Is that 2010 engineer report?
Your worship, through you, that report provided the back sort of information. We have received a revised letter stating that the geotech's been on site. He's reconfirmed that report,
Okay,
and he's certified safe for the use intended.
okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know that in the past, we've had some people come forward who had an old geotech and we wouldn't allow that, so we do have that. So it will look, I guess my thought is it's gonna, like, how's it gonna look in the subdivision? It'll look the same as the house that's next to it, in essence.
Your worship, through you, I'm gonna say not entirely. There will be a certain optics that is created with this setback. It's on the most curved portion of the, it's basically a half cul-de-sac,
Right.
and it's on the most curved portion of it, even versus the neighboring house that got that previous variance.
Right.
So there could be a certain optics that it may appear closer to the street. The only thing that's going for it is the fact that the scale of the house isn't that large, so it may appear sort of monotonous in that sense.
Do we have to give notice to the neighbors for this variance?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
your worship, through you, the motion is that
Oh,
we
yeah,
do go for
okay.
the notice,
So,
but
yeah,
today we're
pay
just going for the
attention.
development permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Additional comments, Councilor Crock?
So, yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report. It's pretty good. Your reports are getting as good as Scott's. So, anyhow, so what I was wondering though is, for the driveway area, where is that gonna be? Is they gonna have enough room for that, or will they be able to put vehicles in there out of curiosity?
Your worship, through you, it is required that they meet the parking standard.
Right,
There should be enough space for the driveway. Looking at that photo that I provided within the report,
right.
you can see that maybe the neighboring property's driveway may have encroached on this portion.
That's what I was wondering.
That's a civil matter in the sense
I
that,
see, okay.
and then also they will require a driveway access permit through the district, and at that time, it'd be up to the roads foreman to determine a safe access to that site. But it will take away from the yard space in the sense that there may not be much grass there.
I see, okay. They're happy with it, I guess. Thank you. Excellent, thanks.
Any additional comments? Mr. Dalton, did we get it all?
I think so, yes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, motion's on the table. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Item 8B, intermunicipal business license bylaw. We had significant discussion on this last time. Mr. Forlowski, anything new and interesting?
Your worship, but perhaps I could defer to my colleague, the director of corporate services.
Okay, thank you.
Nope, everything's status quo, we just have to adopt it, and all the participating municipalities have likewise the same bylaws.
Okay, move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Medlock, Councilor Croft, moving and seconding. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Now, items of correspondence. Should I go in for you there?
Move receipt to
Okay, this is from Medlock, moving.
Second.
Okay, tie again there. Councilor Croft, second. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Question period for items relevant to the agenda. We will have a committee meeting here. We'll finish off on that here momentarily. So if it's pest control related, we'll deal with it in committee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess the pertinent thing is to adjourn the regular meeting and head back into the committee.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Diamond, Councilor Sullivan, moving and seconding. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. 2-minute recess for washroom.